I first saw him on my way home from work. It was late, well past midnight, and the streets were empty. I was walking my usual route, 3 blocks down, 2 to the right, past the abandoned gas station, and straight to my apartment. I liked walking at night. It was quiet, peaceful, but that night was different. As I passed under a broken street lamp, I saw him. A man standing perfectly still on the opposite sidewalk, half hidden in the shadows. His clothes were all wrong, too formal, like an old-fashioned suit from a black and white movie. His head was tilted slightly, and though I couldn't see his face clearly, I knew he was looking at me. And he was smiling. Not a normal smile. Too wide. Too wrong. Something about him made my stomach tighten. He wasn't moving, wasn't blinking. Just standing there, grinning. I quickened my pace. I told myself he was just some weirdo, maybe a drunk or a guy on something. But as I turned the corner, I made the mistake of glancing back. He was closer. Still standing. Still smiling. I didn't hear him move. I didn't see him move. He had just shifted, like a picture that had changed when I wasn't looking. A cold dread crept up my spine. I walked faster. My apartment was only a few blocks away. Just get home, lock the door, and forget about him. I didn't look back again. By the time I reached my building, my heart was pounding. I fumbled for my keys, hands shaking, the feeling of being watched growing heavier with every second. I forced myself to glance over my shoulder. The street was empty. No smiling man. I let out a breath, laughing nervously at myself. I was being paranoid. Just my mind playing tricks. Then, as I stepped inside and closed the door, I heard it. A voice. Soft. Close. You're fun. The second night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that smile, too wide, too still. By morning, I had convinced myself it was a one-time thing. A weird, unsettling encounter, nothing more. I went to work as usual, tried to shake the unease in my chest. But when I got home that night, something was waiting for me. A note. No envelope. Just a single slip of paper, resting on my doormat. 3 words scrawled in perfect, looping handwriting. I like you. I stared at it for a long time, my skin crawling. Who left this? How did they get into the building? I forced myself to laugh. A prank. That's all. Maybe some kid messing with tenants. But I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on me. I spent the night checking the locks. The third night, I stayed late at work, too nervous to walk home alone. When I finally left, I called a cab instead of walking. When the driver pulled up to my building, I felt relief wash over me. The lobby was brightly lit. Safe. I stepped out of the cab, turned toward the entrance, and froze. He was there, standing inside the building, just beyond the glass doors. Still smiling. My body locked up. My breath hitched in my throat. The lights inside flickered, just for a second, and in that brief moment of darkness, he moved. Not a step. Not a turn. Just closer. My feet finally obeyed. I bolted. I didn't care where I was running. I just needed to get away. I don't remember how far I ran, how long. I only remember stopping when my legs burned and my lungs ached. I was in a different part of town now, unfamiliar streets stretching out before me. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. A notification blinked at the top of the screen. 1 new photo received. My stomach dropped. I didn't open it. I didn't want to open it, but something made me. With a deep breath, I tapped the message. The image loaded. It was me, standing outside my apartment building. And behind me, just inches away, was the smiling man. No longer distant. No longer watching. His lips near my ear. His mouth moving. And though I couldn't hear him, I knew exactly what he was saying. I found you. The final night. I never went back to my apartment. I booked a hotel on the other side of town, locked the door, and barricaded myself inside. I didn't sleep. I barely moved. Every shadow, every flicker of movement outside the window made my pulse skyrocket. I checked my phone constantly. No new messages. No new photos. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. By morning, I convinced myself it was over. Maybe I had lost him. Maybe he had gotten bored. Then, at 2:47 a.m., my phone vibrated. A video. With shaking hands, I pressed play. At first, all I saw was static. Then slowly, the image came into focus. A hotel hallway. My hallway. The camera was moving, gliding closer to a door. My door. And then nothing. Just a still shot of my room number. I couldn't breathe. My body refused to move. Then, just before the video ended, the camera tilted. And for the first time, I saw him up close. His face. His eyes. His impossible, horrible smile. Then, 3 soft knocks at my door. And the whisper, "Let me in." I don't remember screaming. I don't remember grabbing my bag and running. But I ran. I left the hotel. The city. My job. Everything. I don't stay in one place anymore. I keep moving, always looking over my shoulder. Because I know he's still out there. Waiting. Watching. Still smiling. I never used to believe in ghosts. Not really. I was the kind of person who laughed at horror movies, who rolled my eyes when people talked about bad energy in old houses. Ghosts were stories, fiction, things that existed in the dark corners of our minds, not in the real world. Then I moved into the house on Hollow Creek Road. It was supposed to be a fresh start. After the divorce, I wanted peace, solitude, a place to clear my head. The house was perfect, secluded, surrounded by thick woods, and built on the edge of a slow-moving river. It was old, sure, but solid. A little too quiet, maybe, but I told myself that was a good thing. The first few nights were uneventful. I settled into a routine. Wake up early, take long walks along the river, work from home, read until I got tired. The only thing I didn't like was the fog. Every night, without fail, a thick mist rolled in from the water, swallowing the trees and creeping up to the house. It was so dense I couldn't see more than a few feet beyond my window. At first, I found it beautiful, like something out of a painting. Then I started seeing the figure. It was always just beyond the fog's edge. A tall, dark shape standing in the distance, barely visible through the swirling mist. I first noticed it on my 3rd night. At first, I thought it was a tree or a trick of the light. But then it moved. Not a lot, just a small shift, like someone adjusting their weight from one foot to the other. A person. Watching. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe a hiker who got lost. Maybe a shadow playing tricks on me. But deep down, I felt something else, something wrong. I forced myself to look away, to go back inside and lock the doors. I barely slept that night. The next evening, it was there again. Closer. And this time, I could see more details. It was tall, unnaturally so. Its arms hung too long at its sides, its posture rigid, unnatural. I couldn't make out a face, just a dark void where its features should have been. It didn't move, didn't react to me. It only watched. I closed the curtains. I tried to tell myself I was imagining things, but each night, the figure came back. Always a little closer. Always standing just at the edge of the fog. Then came the knocking. It started at exactly 2:47 a.m. A slow, deliberate knock on the front door. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. No one ever came out here. The house was miles away from the nearest neighbor. Who would be knocking at this hour? I checked the security camera feed on my phone, but the fog was too thick to see anything. Just swirling gray. I held my breath, waiting, hoping it had been a dream. Then, 3 more knocks. I crept toward the door, every instinct screaming at me to not open it. I pressed my eye to the peephole, expecting to see nothing but mist. But there it was, standing directly on my porch, its featureless face inches from the door. I stumbled back, my breath coming in short gasps. The knocking stopped. The air in the room grew thick, heavy. Then I heard the whisper, "Let me in." I ran, locked myself in my bedroom, shoved a dresser against the door, and waited for dawn. When morning came, the fog had lifted. The figure was gone. I should have left. I wanted to leave. But something in me, the same stubborn disbelief that had made me scoff at ghost stories, kept me there. Maybe I was going crazy. Maybe I had been dreaming. Maybe there was some logical explanation. I lasted 1 more night. That evening, I didn't go near the windows. I didn't check for the figure. I tried to ignore the suffocating silence of the house, the feeling that I was no longer alone. But at 2:47 a.m., the knocking came again. This time, it wasn't just at the front door. It was everywhere. The walls, the windows, the back door. A slow, rhythmic tapping, like fingers drumming on glass. Then the whisper, closer now. "Let me in." The lights flickered. The air turned ice cold. The knocking grew louder, more frantic. My phone died in my hands. Then silence. A deep, unnatural silence. The kind that makes your ears ring, makes your breath sound too loud. I stayed in bed, frozen, waiting for something, anything, to happen. And then, the closet door creaked open. Not fast, not violently, just a slow, deliberate movement. The last thing I saw before I blacked out was a long, shadowed hand reaching toward me. Aftermath. I woke up on the floor. Morning light streamed through the windows. The fog was gone. My phone was back on the nightstand, fully charged. The house looked exactly the same as before, except for the footprints. A trail of wet, blackened prints led from the closet to my bed, and then back toward the door, as if something or someone had stood over me in the night. I left that morning. I didn't pack. I didn't clean. I just got in my car and drove, leaving everything behind. I found a new place in the city, surrounded by people, noise, and lights that burn away the darkness. I don't go near the woods. I don't live near water. And I never, ever open the door after dark. But sometimes, when the night is quiet and the fog rolls in, I swear I can still hear it. A slow, deliberate knocking. And the whisper, "Let me in." I thought I had escaped. Months passed without incident. No knocking. No whispers. No figure watching from the fog. I convinced myself that what happened at the house on Hollow Creek Road was a hallucination, a symptom of stress, exhaustion, or some trick of my mind. Then one night, it found me again. It started with the dream. I was back in the old house, standing in front of the closet, the same closet where I had last seen it. The door was ajar, a deep darkness pressing against the edges. I knew I shouldn't look inside, but something made me. The second I leaned forward, I felt a breath against my face. Cold, damp, reeking of stagnant water and decay. Then the whisper, "You left the door open." I woke up gasping for air, my sheets damp with sweat. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would break my ribs. It took me a few moments to realize where I was, my new apartment, far from that cursed house. But something was wrong. The air felt thick, suffocating. My skin prickled, and a deep dread curled in my stomach. I turned my head toward the bedroom door, toward the hallway, and that's when I saw it. The door was open. I never leave it open. Never. A lump of cold fear settled in my gut. Slowly, I reached for my phone, needing light, needing something to break the darkness. My fingers fumbled against the screen, but as soon as I turned it on, my breath caught in my throat. There was a notification. Motion detected in hallway camera. With trembling hands, I tapped the notification, pulling up the live feed. The screen flickered, distorted by static. At first, I saw nothing but darkness. Then, slowly, the feed cleared, revealing the hallway outside my bedroom. And something was there. A tall, shadowed figure. Waiting. Watching. Its head tilted, as if it knew I could see it. I dropped the phone. My mind screamed at me to run, to get out, to do something. But before I could move, the whisper came again, closer than ever. "You left the door open." The lights flickered. The air turned ice cold. And the knocking started. Not from the front door. Not from the walls. From inside the closet. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I knew deep down that I had made a terrible mistake. I should have never left the house on Hollow Creek Road. I should have never ignored the whispers. Because now it wasn't just watching. It was inside. And this time, it wasn't leaving. It started with the footsteps. Faint, almost imperceptible at first, like the sound of old wood settling at night. But they grew louder, more deliberate. I live alone in a small apartment on the outskirts of town, and I don't have neighbors close enough for sound to travel through the walls. At first, I convinced myself it was my imagination. Stress. Fatigue. I work long hours at a hospital, and exhaustion plays tricks on the mind. But the footsteps didn't go away. They became a nightly occurrence. Always between 2 o'clock and 3 a.m. Always in the hallway outside my bedroom. One night, I decided to confront whatever was happening. I turned on my phone's flashlight and stepped into the hallway. Nothing. Just silence. But as soon as I turned back toward my room, I heard a whisper. It was so soft I could barely make out the words, but I swear it said, "You're not supposed to be awake." I spun around, my heart pounding so hard I felt it in my throat. Again, nothing. Just the empty hallway, dimly lit by my phone's weak glow. That was the night I started locking my bedroom door. For a while, it seemed to help. The footsteps continued, but they never entered my room. Then a week later, something changed. I woke up to the feeling of breath on my face. A slow, warm exhale. I froze. I didn't move, didn't scream. My body refused to react. I could feel something, or someone, standing right beside my bed, but I couldn't see it. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I couldn't bring myself to move. Then I heard the whisper again. This time it was closer, right next to my ear. Why did you lock the door? I turned on the lamp in a blind panic, but there was no one there. My room was empty. The door was still locked. The next morning, I checked the security cameras I had installed in the hallway after the first few incidents. My blood ran cold when I saw the footage. At exactly 2:47 a.m., my bedroom door had unlocked itself from the inside. I moved out the next day, but sometimes on quiet nights, I swear I can still hear the footsteps. I thought leaving that apartment would be the end of it. I found a new place across town, a modern high-rise with security cameras and a 24-hour doorman. Nothing like my old, creaky apartment. I told myself that whatever was happening there was tied to the place, not to me. For a while, I believed it. The first few nights in my new apartment were peaceful. No footsteps, no whispers, no sense of something lurking in the darkness. I started sleeping better, convincing myself that exhaustion had played tricks on my mind. Then, on the fifth night, my phone vibrated at 2:47 a.m. A notification. Motion detected in hallway camera. I sat up in bed, my hands shaking as I opened the app. The feed was grainy in the dim light, but there was no mistaking what I saw. My bedroom door, firmly shut when I had gone to sleep, was now slightly open. I stared at the screen, my breath caught in my chest. The door didn't move, but something felt wrong. Then the whisper came again. I found you. It wasn't coming from my phone. It was coming from inside the room. I dropped the phone and scrambled for the light switch, my heart hammering against my ribs. As soon as the room flooded with light, the whisper stopped. The door was still slightly ajar, but nothing was there. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I hadn't fully closed the door. Maybe the security system had glitched. Maybe stress was messing with my mind again. But deep down, I knew. It hadn't been the apartment. It had been me all along. And whatever it wasn't finished with me yet. I stopped sleeping at night. At first, I tried to fight it, sleeping with the lights on, moving to the couch, even playing music to drown out the silence. But none of it helped. Every night, at exactly 2:47 a.m., something changed. The air would grow thick, heavy wrong. The room would seem darker than it should be, shadows stretching unnaturally. And then the whisper. I found you. No matter how loud I played music, no matter how brightly I lit the room, I always heard it. Close. Too close. I tried to leave. I packed my bags, booked a hotel, and told myself I would never return. But as I stepped into the hallway, my phone vibrated again. Motion detected in hallway camera. I stared at the notification, dreading what I would see. Slowly, I tapped the screen. The feed opened, and my stomach dropped. The camera showed me standing in the hallway. But I wasn't holding my phone. I wasn't looking at the camera. My head was tilted slightly, my face half hidden in shadow. Then my other self smiled. The screen flickered. The app crashed. And behind me, I heard the whisper one last time. You can't leave. I don't remember what happened next. I woke up in my bed, my phone on the nightstand, my bags unpacked as if I had never touched them. I don't try to leave anymore. I don't sleep either. Because now, when I look in the mirror, sometimes my reflection doesn't move. And when it smiles, it's not my smile.